Hey everyone, doing another review and graphics settings video on Far Cry 6. This time I'm doing a video at 1440p, same hardware as before with the Asus A15 Tough laptop with a Ryzen 7 4800H and a NVIDIA 1660 Ti GPU. I think these settings that I'm going to talk about will be useful for anybody using like a mid-range or a lower-end graphics card to kind of help you get the most out of this game. Of course, everything is kind of depends on what you like personally and what's most important to you as far as FPS versus like quality of the game, what everything looks like. Everyone has their own preferences, but hopefully this will be useful to you and you can get your PC set up in the way that you like to get the most out of the game. So let's talk about settings. So right now I'm at 1440p. Show you everything here. Okay, so 3440 by 1440. I'm on a 34-inch ultra wide. So I do think that in my case, running an ultra wide external monitor is definitely a little bit more taxing on the GPU than it would be if I was just using the 1080p monitor or maybe even a smaller 1440p monitor. But our settings are, everything's on low. I'm going to start out super basic with this. I'll show you what everything does and the differences, and then we'll just kind of go through them and try to find the best settings for this game. So we're on low, and at 1440 versus 1080 at the same settings, I definitely feel like obviously 1440 looks better because everything's just crisper, all the edges are sharper. So even without any kind of quality settings, anything turned up, just everything as basic as possible, this game actually looks pretty good. And we have kind of a baseline of 52 FPS, which isn't great, but again, it's 1440, it's pretty taxing on the GPU. But it's definitely playable. Like, I could totally play this game just like this without making any adjustments, no FSR, nothing. Because it's this kind of game I think is plenty smooth, running around 50 FPS or so, and it also looks pretty dang good. The only thing I can say about low settings on here that I don't really like is the draw distance. Usually things like really close to you actually look pretty good, but anything in the distance, you can see things popping up as we like run up this road. Rocks sticking up out of the ground and grass, puddles, things like that start popping up. You can see grass popping up. That's the only thing I'm not a really big fan of. Other than that, I mean, this actually looks pretty good. This game looks nice. And it feels plenty smooth too. Alright, so let's change up to medium settings. So as you can see in VRAM usage, it uses like 1 gig more, so it's quite a jump in VRAM. So we should see kind of a big dip in FPS here. Yeah, okay, so now we're in the 40s. Draw distance is a little bit better. Basically everything looks better. We have a little better shadows. Grass looks better, the water looks better. And this, I feel, is still really playable, even in the 40s. We might dip down to the high 30s, we'll see. But this is definitely a better looking game at this point. And depending on what graphics card you have, I have the 1660 Ti, which has 6 gigs of RAM. So there's just enough to do just about any settings on this game. at least at 1440. At 4K, I don't think it would be enough, but this is doing fine. So let's go up to high and see what the difference is. The VRAM usage isn't as much because I feel like the difference between medium and high isn't too much, although like the draw distance is another kind of a big thing that really matters, and of course subtle details definitely look better. And we are seeing a slight dip in FPS, like we went down to the high 30s there, but we're still kind of stuck in the 40s, low 40s, which isn't great, but with VSync on, I think it's plenty smooth. It feels fine. I meant to jump in the back of that truck. Oh well. Game is definitely playable on high. So let's go ahead and max this thing out. Just ultra everything and just see what it does. So that's ultra everything right there. No FSR. VSync on. So this looks pretty good. I do feel like possibly, like if you look off in the distance, the little bit of kind of speckles we have there in the water, that's a little off, and that may be due to just the GPU is working pretty hard and it's not rendering perfectly. Also, it's pretty far off into the distance, so it's not going to look perfect. But everything up close looked awesome. We're in the 30s, so you can feel a difference. Like going from like 50 to 60 FPS, not a big difference, but I think going from the mid to high 40s down to the low 30s, high 20s, that's a difference you can feel in the game. Like the smoothness is not great. I definitely would not recommend gaming like this. I mean, it looks great, but if you're going through some high-paced spots, it's definitely a little much. Because dropping down into the high 20s just kind of sucks. You can really feel the difference. Jeez, freaking Kyle just came out of nowhere. Get him, Guavo. I mean, obviously it's playable. It's okay, but some of these high-paced spots, you can feel it just slows down a lot. It's not really ideal. Especially when you're getting crowded by bad guys. Jeez. That's freaking tough. See if I can throw a baseball at him. That didn't really do anything. Flamethrower did the trick though. Look at that, dipping down to 25 FPS. Not great. Okay. Let's try some FSR. So I definitely would not recommend running FSR on Ultra, at least not at either the balanced or the performance one, because FSR really kills the quality a lot in that range. Quality, you can tell, is okay, but balanced and performance really kind of sucks. So we're just gonna go for performance on this one. I'll show you guys the ultra quality after that, so we can see the difference, like how good it looked before versus now. I feel like you can see, like when you're moving, not good. We got up to 50 FPS, so we gained about 20 FPS, give or take. Maybe 15, maybe an average of 15-ish. So it's definitely smoother, but I don't think it's worth the cost. Like I don't know. I feel like even 1080p would look better than this, and we would get higher FPS. I just don't feel like it's worth the hit in quality. because stuff off in the distance kind of almost looks like 720p until you get like within 50 feet of it. After that, it's not that great. So let's change that. Let's go. We definitely got a good FPS boost, but I just don't feel like it's worth the cost of quality. So let's go and turn this up, and then we'll do some fine tuning here, because I'll show you guys where I like the game. So if we go to ultra quality, you can tell right away, huge difference. And we're getting up to 40 FPS, so we're getting back to the point where the game is fairly smooth and playable, but it looks way better. And you can tell when we stop moving that things definitely look a lot better. But this, I think, would be as far as I would go, as far as like just trying to run max everything, just because if you have a GPU that is capable of at least doing 30 something, maybe 40 FPS, like this is as far as I would take it, just by running the FSR on ultra quality. So let's do some fine tuning, and I'll show you guys where I like the game, because I like to play this at 1440, but I'll show you guys what I think would be the best to get the most out of it. Now, definitely going through all these individual settings can make a huge difference, because different things are important to different people. Like shadows may be more important to one person than the other, or textures in the grass and the roads and things like that are different for everyone. So doing fine tuning here is where you'll get the very most out of this game. So as far as I can tell, going from medium to high isn't a huge difference, and going from high to ultra isn't a real big difference. Although I do, just because it doesn't seem to take any VRAM, I do tend to run texture filtering on high, just because. Ultra, definitely going from ultra to high, I don't feel like makes a big difference. Like, you can tell a little bit. Going from medium to high, I think, is a noticeable enough difference as far as like trying to get it to look more realistic is worth it. VRAM usage is there, but it's relatively small. Shadows definitely is something in most of the games that you can tell takes the most, but we'll leave that one on high. Geometry and vegetation, this is something that I feel like in this game specifically, because we're like on an island and there's grass everywhere, there's trees everywhere, leaving this at the highest setting is worth it, because our VRAM usage is next to nothing. It's very, very small, and that's a pretty important aspect to this game, so we'll leave that on ultra. Now, environment, going down to low, I feel like is a little bit too much, especially with everything else turned up, and we're at 1440p. Going from medium to high is pretty minuscule, the difference. Going up to ultra, you can definitely tell there's more realism, and so I like to leave this at ultra. Water, this I guess is all personal preference. You do save a good amount of VRAM going between low and ultra, obviously, and at least in this map that we're on in the beginning of the game is surrounded by water, but you don't spend a lot of time in the water, and I feel like even on medium, water looks just fine. So I'll leave that at medium just to save some VRAM, get us a couple extra FPS. Now, the terrain really is small difference between even low and ultra. I mean, it's a little crisper, but I don't feel like the difference between high and ultra is that big, so I usually leave that on high. And fog, that's something I really don't care too much about. Honestly, I haven't even seen that much in this game, so I usually leave that on medium. It does use a decent amount of VRAM, and that will definitely bog down your FPS, so I leave that on medium as well. So this is what we got now: high, ultra, medium, high. So you can see it's quite a mix, but I feel like this will probably give us the best quality versus performance, and we'll leave Fidelity FX on, and we'll leave it on ultra quality, because I feel like it's going to give us enough FPS to smooth out the game. So let's see how this looks. So now we're gonna see the high 40s to low 50s, and I feel like this looks pretty damn good. Like everything looks nice. The draw distance pretty good, and that's great. Actually, it's fine. Shadows look good, and we will dip down a little bit to the 40s, but only for a second. I mean, overall, the gameplay smoothness is awesome. And this is basically how I play this game. Now, we're not at 60 FPS, and I know that's kind of like a golden rule. You want to get at 60. But for me, personally, the visuals in this game is definitely more important to me. And I feel like the mix of settings here gets me the best of everything. It allows me to run this game as fast as I can and make it look as good as I can. Obviously, if I had like a 3090 or a 3080, geez, even like a 3060 or like a 6700 XT, even a 6600 XT, something along there would probably allow me to run everything at ultra and get at least 60 FPS. But for the hardware that I have, I feel like this is a good mix of performance. The only thing else we could potentially do to this is just to maybe keep it from jumping around so much and keep it a little smoother, is we can go in and try to do frame lock, and maybe not 60 because we're not reaching there, but maybe, I don't know, maybe 55, and see if that helps smooth everything. Maybe even drop it down to 50 actually, just because I know we're hitting 50 plus, and just see if that helps us stay stable. So, you know, now we'll fluctuate maybe 5 FPS, which I don't think is enough to really notice. And we're staying in the high 40s and hitting 50 FPS, no problem. And this looks pretty dang good. So yeah, that's it for this one, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. Definitely like the video if you guys liked it, and if you guys have any comments or any ideas on how to get more FPS out of this game, definitely comment. Or if you guys are playing it, let me know what settings you guys are using and what is most important in this game to you as far as the visuals, or if you guys are looking for more performance, what's the most important thing to you, and how do you set up your quality settings, your graphics settings in your game. Alright guys, thanks for watching.